In 1215, King John and his barons sign a charter which limits the king's power and provides certain protections, for example, against wrongful imprisonment for the barons and a small percentage of the wider population.
In 1381, the first large popular protest takes place in England. Rebels from Essex rise up and briefly take control of London, demanding less tax and more freedoms.
1450. Angered by corruption around the king, Jack Cade's rebels take London, but, following their excesses, Londoners turn on them and the rebellion falls apart.
1549. Landowner turned rebel, Robert Kett, joins the fight against the enclosure of common lands. The rebels take Norwich, but are eventually defeated by a large army.
1647. In the spaces of possibility created by the English Civil War, radical ideas briefly bloom. The Levellers write a draft constitution promoting voting rights and political reforms, while the Diggers and Ranters experiment with new ways of living.
England didn't have a revolution in the 1700s, but the writings of Englishman Thomas Paine influenced both the American and French revolutions that took place at this time.
In 1811, in the earliest days of the Industrial Revolution, a secretive group known as the Luddites break textile machines in their fight for better pay and working conditions.
In 1819, St. Peter's Fields, Manchester, soldiers on horseback charge into a peaceful crowd of approximately 60,000 people who had gathered to demand voting reform. 600 are injured, over 100 with sword injuries, and 15 are killed.
In 1834, 6 Dorset farm workers legally form a trade union, but are jailed and sent to the other side of the world as punishment, sparking protests, pardons, and their eventual return home. In the 1830s and 40s, Chartism is a mass movement producing petitions that try to bring about voting and parliamentary reform.
From the 1890s, the Suffragettes and Suffragists campaign in different ways for votes for women. Women over 30 gained the right to vote in 1918, and in 1928 they can vote on equal terms with men. In 1926, in the aftermath of the First World War, the pay and conditions of miners is being cut. Millions of workers from many industries go on strike, but the government is prepared and the protest fails.
In October 1936, the Battle of Cable Street takes place between fascist and anti-fascist protesters in the East End of London.
Also in October 1936, 200 men and their female MP march nearly 300 miles from Jarrow to London demanding jobs. Little changes immediately, but their crusade paves the way for some of the social reforms that follow World War II.